Right off the top at 4, indictments handed down in the Russia probe. And President Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, now charged with conspiracy against the U.S.
Manafort's longtime business associate Rick Gates was also indicted on charges that include conspiracy, money laundering, and both men working as unregistered foreign agents.
And all of this comes after special counsel's 5-month investigation. Let's get right to our D.C. bureau chief, Ross Palumbo. He's live at a very busy White House with the latest. Ross.
Well, Lori and Calvin, that doesn't even mention today's bombshell revelation that a former presidential advisor pled guilty to lying to the FBI. More on that in just a few minutes. But first, take a look at this. Paul Manafort himself just leaving that federal courthouse today. He's been released on $10 million bail. He'll have to be under house arrest until this case goes to trial. He said nothing to reporters as he walked away. Here at the White House, they were saying little more. They actually tried a major distraction by telling some bizarre story about beer and taxes at the beginning of the briefing, but that did not dissuade anyone from asking about all of these indictments.
Doesn't have anything to do with us.
The White House now saying the indictments of the president's own campaign manager and his deputy and the guilty plea of a former presidential advisor are irrelevant.
Today's announcement has nothing to do with the president, has nothing to do with the president's campaign or campaign activity.
But federal authorities say part of the crimes surrounding Manafort were committed while working for the president.
Mr. Manafort, did you collude with Russians?
Without a word, Manafort surrendering at the FBI, former campaign deputy Rick Gates already inside, both now charged with 12 felony counts, including conspiracy against the U.S., conspiracy to launder money, unregistered agent of a foreign principal, false and misleading registration statements, other false statements, and 7 counts of failure to file reports of foreign bank accounts. Both today pleaded not guilty.
Mr. Manafort, did you collude with Russians?
Manafort resigned from the campaign following revelations of financial ties to the Russian-backed government in Ukraine. But Gates remained close with the campaign and also served as the deputy of the president's inauguration committee.
There was some initial contact after the president was sworn in with him at meetings here at the White House, but nothing directly with the president.
There are no charges directly naming the president, who immediately tweeted, "Sorry, but this is years ago, before Paul Manafort was part of the Trump campaign. But why aren't crooked Hillary and the Dems the focus? Also, there is no collusion." More unsealed records today also showing that George Papadopoulos, a former Trump campaign advisor, has already pleaded guilty for making false statements to the FBI about his interactions with Russian agents to get dirt on Hillary Clinton. He's now cooperating with authorities.
How is all of that not collusion?
He was part of a list that was read out in the Washington Post. I'd hardly call that some sort of regular advisor, or as you want to, push that he's like a senior member of the staff. He was not paid by the campaign. He was a volunteer.
Well, back to Gates right now. His attorney releasing a statement saying, quote, "The fight is just beginning." As for Paul Manafort's attorney, he addressed the media just a little while ago. Take a listen.
There is no evidence that Mr. Manafort or the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government. Mr. Manafort represented pro-European Union campaigns for the Ukrainian. And in that, he was seeking to further democracy and to help the Ukraine come closer to the United States and the EU. Those activities ended in 2014, over 2 years before Mr. Manafort served in the Trump campaign.
Well, both Gates and Manafort have now been released. Their passports, Lauren Calvin, were confiscated because they are considered to be flight risks. They both will be under home arrest until these charges are completely adjudicated. Right now, we also have some breaking news to tell you about coming out of the White House. That suspect that was captured in Libya after a raid, who might be responsible for the 2012 attacks in Benghazi that led to 3 people getting killed, 3 Americans and our ambassador. The president just issuing a statement right now saying that that suspect, quote, "will face justice here in the U.S. for those alleged crimes." That's a breaking story. We'll continue to follow that for you and have much more on the indictments coming up new at 5. For now, though, that's the very latest live at the White House. Lauren Calvin, back to you.
And Ross, there's so many directions to go with this. We will flesh this out with you throughout the afternoon. But there's been so much talk that President Trump can pardon anybody indicted as well. Do you know yet if these kind of charges, now that we know all 12 charges, could the president actually pardon these two men?
Well, legally, it could be a maneuver, Lori. We have asked the administration about that time and time again. They've refused to answer that. We do have information, and there has been extensive reporting out there saying that the president's attorney has looked into that possibility, but we simply do not know at this point if a pardon could work legally and if the president plans on doing it. The president's spokesperson was asked today about Mueller, by the way, whether it is still possible that the president would try to fire Robert Mueller, and Sarah Sanders saying that that is not going to happen.
Just the beginning. Our Ross Palumbo live for us. Ross, we'll see you at 5 o'clock. Thanks a lot.